This was a long talk that we had about the haunting of Hill House.
I'm so sorry.
No. We're rolling.
I'm sorry. Okay. Yes. Hey, I just woke up, you guys.
I just woke up. Where am I? I thought it was weird that you brought a sleeping bag. I'm in the red room. I thought it was weird that you brought a sleeping bag and to a podcast recording.
I get tired. I mean,
welcome to the Georgia Made podcast.
Yes, welcome.
We had an incredibly long discussion about the haunting of Hill House. I don't know how we thought we would cram that into like a short episode. But I mean, there was just so much to cover.
Yeah.
So welcome back. We're still talking about it. I hope if you hadn't watched the show that you have now had time to go back and watch the haunting of Hill House.
You didn't fucking listen to the episode before you watched
Jesus
it.
Christ.
Fucking idiot.
We told you. I mean, if I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times.
Yes.
You got to watch the show before you listen to the podcast. Anyway, welcome. We are going to just jump right back into our discussion of the haunting of Hill House.
By the way, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Nicole.
Yeah.
And
cool.
what podcast is this?
The Georgia Made podcast.
This is the Georgia Made podcast. Okay, so welcome to the Georgia Made podcast. And let's just get right back into our discussion of the haunting of Hill House.
Yes. You know, it's funny. Nellie was always trying to get all of us together in one place. Even Dad tried for years. Someone should have told her she didn't have to try this hard.
Shall we move on to episode 6?
Yeah, let's talk about episode 6.
So, do you think episode 6 is Hugh, the dad?
I think episode 6 is...
The next 3 episodes are the family and the home, the funeral home.
It is. I guess it is kind of Hugh's episode. Wait, is this no? It's not, because I think Hugh's episode is the episode where he's like fixing the mold problem. That's his episode.
Okay.
This, I think, it rightfully so in the middle is more of like I think it's more about the house and the nature of what's going on. And that's one of the reasons why I think it looks so different. So, of course, if you haven't seen the show, what are you doing here? But if you have, you know that the entire episode is shot. It's not in one take, but it looks like it is. And the takes are very long. They're like 10 or 15 minutes. There's a lot of really choreographed camera movement. It's really truly a incredible feat of acting and cinematography and direction. It's incredible. But the 6th episode, which is called Two Storms, and I think maybe this is a good time to talk about how time is used in this show and how that's different from other shows that I've seen. At one point it was kind of revolutionary to live in the past and the present and use the past to tell the present. Again, not that they haven't been doing that for a long time, but I'm thinking of like a show like Lost, which I don't think you're familiar with that show, but I was a big fan of Lost. And Lost kind of hinged on these character-centric episodes where you were given information about the past to inform what you were looking at in the present and to reveal things that on the surface you might judge a character one way, but when you get a sense of what happened to them in the past, it changes the way you look at them. And that's something that Lost did. And Lost also did something that they do on this show, which is to get in and out of the flashbacks, there's like a matching action. Like Hugh is opening a door in the past, and then when it opens, he's in the future or whatever. You know what I mean? And I'm thinking of the scene where they're sorting through stuff when Theo is in the 3rd episode, when Theo's unpacking the dollhouse and she's tossing everything in a box. And then we cut to them tossing stuff out in the past in the house into a box. Same thing. But the thing that's unusual about this show is they're not just going into the past. Time is nonlinear for the characters as well as it is for us. And so they're experiencing the past and the future all at once.
Yeah.
And the bent neck lady is a really good example of that, because Nell is like being haunted by the ghost of herself, right?
In the future.
in the past. Like little Nell as a child is being haunted by her future self.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying now.
Yeah.
But it's also lines of dialogue. Like one time Hugh goes into the bedroom to check on the kids, and Shirley is saying, Nell's in the red room in her sleep. And that's something she says again when Nell commits suicide and they all wake up at the same time. And she wakes up and says, Nell's in the red room. And then again, we get it a bunch of times, but these are just the ones that are coming to mind. And then again, in the last episode, which we'll get into that more deeply, when Nell is in the red room and she enters and she starts talking and we don't understand what she's saying.
Yeah, it seems all out of order.
Because what she's saying is in response to what other people are saying to her.
Right.
And we don't get that until the other people start talking.
Yeah.
And so I love it when when a film or a story plays with time. It's just like a thing that I really get a kick out of it. I love the mind puzzle of trying to figure out what's going on. And this was like really an interesting take on that to me. For me to have to put the puzzle pieces together about what happened in the past, but also that time is a circle. And that's like one way to look at time is that time it's all happening all at once. There is no past, there's no future. It's just a circle. And that's really fascinating to me.
It's more of a sphere.
Oh, sorry. You're right.
I'm just kidding.
It's more of a parallelogram. Okay, so 2 storms. We're seeing this really bad storm happen in the past in the house, and it's like the whole family's there. And then we're also seeing an emotional storm, which is this is the viewing. Mm-hmm. Nell's in the coffin. All the families arrived. Now they got to deal with their fucking shit. It's all got to be out in the open. Anyway, I've been talking for a while. It's your turn. What do you want to say about this episode?
No, I mean, I agree with what you said about the cinematography and the timing, the way they've set up, and there are lots of shots where like they like are looking in one direction and then they like turn and the bent neck lady is there, and then they turn away again and then she's gone, or she's closer or farther away, and just I thought that this was an amazing, like you said, an amazing feat.
And there's a video of a behind the scenes video of them shooting this, and it's really amazing.
Oh, nice.
There's like, they're walking down the hall in the house, and then the fucking camera guy gets on a goddamn platform, and the platform lowers to the second floor, and he gets off the platform and follows the characters as they've gone down the stairs. I'm going to find this video and post it to the Georgia Made social media. So look for that when this episode is up.
Yeah,
I'm going to put that up there because it's really amazing to see that incredible work.
Yeah, there's actually a shot in this. I'm sorry.
Done by people who live here in Georgia. Yes. I mean, I don't know who the camera operator was. I don't know, but we of course do know that this was shot here, and a lot of Georgia crew people working on it.
There's one shot in particular in this episode where Nell and Luke are holding hands, and the camera like passes between them, and I'm like, how is it? Because like the camera is physically moving, but it's not just like a zoom or like, but it's physically going like
right
through their hands, and I'm like, how is that happening? Like,
yeah. So also the really gut-wrenching thing is that this whole time, so while they're there, they're arguing, like there's this crossover between the story in the past and the story in the present. And again, this is another way where we're seeing time overlap, where little Nell goes missing and they can't find her. And when they and then when they do find her, she says, I was there the whole time. I'm going to start crying again. Yeah. Oh my God. I should have brought a box of...
I was here the whole time. You didn't see me. You didn't try to find me. Like, I was here. I was right here. And that's like that's like in her life. Like, like.
I was there the whole time. Yeah. I've been calling. I've been crying out for help.
And in this episode, they also explored...
Oh my God, and when little Luke is like, don't ever do that again. I thought the house things got you. Don't do that. I can't be alone. I can't be without you.
Yeah. But also, like, in this episode, Hugh talks about, like, how she wrote to him and always just asked...
how he was doing.
And told him about her siblings and only wanted to talk about them and see how they were doing, and they're all just kind of seeing like, wow, she really was selfless, and we ignored her.
Yeah, or just couldn't deal with the rawness of her grief. Yeah. I feel like a lot of them couldn't deal with the rawness of it, and Luke would have dealt with it, but he had his own. Yeah, he couldn't because he was
couldn't cope
on drugs. He was messed up, so he couldn't. So she really was alone, and aside from her husband before he died. But God, when they're all arguing, and we played a clip of it, I think in the first episode of our show, when they're all arguing, and it's really coming to a head between Steve and Hugh, and Steve is basically like, Hugh's like, you don't understand, you don't know what that house was really about, you never did, and he's basically like, the wrong parent died, I wish you had died instead of Mom. And Nell's casket falls over,
just crawls over with a crash.
Oh God.
Yeah, and she just like rolls out and like,
I'm here, see me, you know.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Also, when Hugh walks in and looks at Nell for the first time, and in the coffin it's his baby daughter. Oh my God, you guys, this show fucking wrecked me. This show wrecked me like so hard. Oh God, it's so much. Like I can't even speak. This episode, oh my God. Yeah. But it ends that way. You know, a lot of things happen. We think that Shirley's husband is, God, we haven't even talked about that guy she keeps seeing everywhere who's like toasting with the rocks glass. Yeah. She thinks that Theo and her husband are like in the closet, like messing around, but really it's just a reflection of her own guilt. Oh man. And again, we get that same, like, everybody, like, once they get Nell sort of back in the coffin and they're decided to call it a night and they're all leaving together, and Nell is just standing there as the bent neck lady while we hear her little voice saying, I was there and you didn't see me. Oh my God, you guys, I can't. I'm going to get through this episode. Crying. I am crying. I'm going to get through this episode. Oh boy, it's just, guys, if you haven't seen the show, fuck. God damn, you got to watch it. It's so good. And I'm a person who does not like to cry. Like, I am running from my emotions as much as possible. And I'm just so glad that we watched this. Okay, all right, let's move on. I can't take it. I can't do it anymore. I can't.
Come on, I'll see you tomorrow.
Don't do that ever again. Ever. I thought the health things had got you. I thought they took you. I'm so glad you're okay. I didn't go anywhere. I was right here. I was right here the whole time. Nobody could see me.
The 7th episode is called Eulogy, and it's the actual funeral.
I don't remember much about this episode. Should we, because we've been talking for a long time, should we try to hit, do you have any other, did you want to talk about each episode, or did you have a couple of things we didn't get to? Because I don't remember this episode.
7 and 8. 7 and 8 are still in the funeral home, and give more background about, like, the, who is the Dudleys.
Okay, I did want to talk about the Dudleys for a second, because again, I didn't think too much of them. Like, I knew that they obviously had a bad experience with the house, right? But they have this really rich backstory that doesn't even come into play until this part of the show, where we find out that, like, they used to live on the grounds, but then what's her name, Mrs. Dudley? Anyway, she has a baby, but the baby's
Clara, stillborn,
and oh my God! This is when Hugh is trying to fix the mold,
right?
And Mr. Dudley is I hate that I don't remember his first name, but like that monologue that he delivers, where they just do that really, really slow push in. I mean, he crushed it.
Yeah.
But basically, their grief is so deep, and the house, they keep hearing this baby crying, and they have and he's like, my wife was starting to lose it, and we had to move off the grounds, and we don't stay here after dark. And basically, at this point, we haven't talked too much about Olivia, but she's kind of falling apart.
Yeah.
And
and Olivia's like the heart of the show too, which is interesting that we haven't like talked about her.
She's such a tough one for me, because she's so sympathetic, but she straight up she tries to murder her children.
Yeah.
And that's tough. And I applaud the show for having a character that is so challenging like that. And obviously we can blame it a little bit on the house. I mean, we can blame it on the house in the context of the show. But again, if you're taking this supernatural element out of it, like she's a mentally ill person who begins to fall apart and really kills someone in the process.
Yeah.
Before she kills herself.
The girl that we thought was a ghost was actually real.
She's the Dudley's daughter. So and this is where the Dudleys really come into play. So they have this child. The child is stillborn. They're hearing crying. Mrs. Dudley starts to fall apart, and so they realize this house is bad for them, and they've got to stay off the grounds. So they stay off the grounds. Then they have another child, Abigail, and because of what happened with the first child, the Dudleys are so afraid to lose her. And this is the scary thing about being a parent, is that you want to just keep them in your house all the time. Charlotte, my daughter, who's now 8 years old, almost 8.5, she's old enough now where she's starting to go out with the kids in the neighborhood and go from house to house. And she's going to be like walking herself home from school, and she wants to wander. And she's old enough to do that. And it's really hard for me because I'm like, I don't know where you are. I don't know what you're doing. And you just like, you're afraid of the scary world, but you can't keep them inside all the time. And that's kind of what they do. But Abigail sneaks out. And this whole time we think
on the worst night.
Right, but she also sneaks out during the day and plays with Luke in the woods. And this whole time we thought she was a ghost. She's not. She's a real kid that Luke has made friends with, and he invites her to sleep over, and she comes and sleeps over. Anyway, we'll get to that. We'll get to that, I feel like. Is Olivia a bad mom?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No. I know this sounds weird, but the way that they've laid it out, the way that they've shown how she got to that point, I don't blame her. I think she really was completely out of her mind and hallucinating at all times.
I mean, yeah, for sure. The house is really fucking with her.
Yeah.
But the thing that gets her is it's the same thing with the Dudleys. It's that fear that the world will swallow your children.
And that's why
that's the fear.
Yeah.
And it's like, a fear, a really real fear as a parent. And she lets it take over. And the house manipulates her. We haven't gotten into it, but there's a ghost in the house that she encounters.
The main bad ghost, I guess you would say.
Right. I don't remember her name, but she's like this 1920s, like kind of flappery ghost. And occasionally she appears as a young woman. Sometimes she appears as an old woman. There's an old sick woman who's like her mother-in-law, I think, who appears sometimes and is like, don't listen to her. She's full of shit. You know, which... But yeah, Olivia full on sees all the ghosts in the house. Like she's very psychically sensitive. She sees all the ghosts in the house. And the house begins to manipulate her into believing that she needs to murder her children in order to protect them from the outside world, which is fucking crazy.
It's kind of like that, like they can't die if I kill them first or something. Like
I think it's more that if I keep them this way, if they're always this way, they'll never have to grow up and be damaged the way adults are. That's kind of what I took it to mean.
Yeah.
If I keep them this way, then they'll always be with me. They'll always be babies. They'll always be under my care, and they won't have the heartbreak of being an adult. And that's, I think, what she's afraid of.
That didn't occur to me. That's so...
Yeah. And I think that's what it's about to me.
You hear all the time about, like my friends posting on Instagram, Instagram and Facebook saying like, I wish I could keep my kids like this forever. I wish they wouldn't grow anymore. I wish they would stop growing. I would, like.
And you don't really mean that, but in a way, it's like the transitions. They don't happen. There's not like a last day where they want to sleep on you, or a last day where you can really say, like, that was the last day I breastfed, or that was the last day I changed a diaper. I mean, yes, there is a last day, but you don't know when it is the last day. It just happens. And then later you're like, oh, yeah, that was the last day I did that. But you didn't say goodbye. It's a really gradual change where they, like, slowly become more and more independent.
Yeah.
And you see them get their heart broken, and it's hard because you don't want them to feel the pain. You want them to just only be happy and have good things, but that's just not what life is.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's tough.
Yeah.
God, it's hard being a parent, you guys.
Yeah.
So many feelings.
I dreamed I lost my little girl once. I dreamed she was choking on her own body for no reason. Just trying for air like the room was underwater and shaking like she was in the hot squat. And I dreamed I held her little hand and sat at her side. And it took days, weeks. It took weeks for her to quit gulping that watery air, quit gaping at me like a fish on the beach. But finally she did.
Should Hugh have known Olivia was dangerous sooner? Should he have done something sooner?
Yes.
I agree, 100%. I mean, I don't blame. I'm not saying it's Hugh's fault. But
Now
he wakes up and she's got like a fucking knife to his throat.
it's a
right?
a
screwdriver. Sorry.
Screwdriver. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
look. All right, you were about to say something.
And that is the day when he like says when he says she has to go, like she has to like
you got to take a break.
The house by this point has taken hold so much that she does leave, but she comes right back.
She comes right back. Yeah, she stays at the motel. That motel, which comes back again and again.
Yeah.
The motel they stay at after they leave the house. The motel where Olivia goes and pretends like she's gone to her sister's, but she hasn't. And the motel where Nell goes right before she goes back to the house. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the Dudleys try to tell him. They're like, I think your wife needs a break. And he's just like not ready to hear it. Yeah. And not that it's his fault at all. I don't think he expected that.
I mean,
to
you
happen.
can't expect it until it actually
No.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
You grew up so fast. You and Steve. Theo, too. Kittens need their mommies and then they don't. Okay?
Shall we move on to episode 9 or 10 or?
You mean the last episode?
The last episode?
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
do that. Let's do that. I think we need to talk about the
Red Room.
The Red Room. Let's talk about the Red Room.
The Red Room is this place we're first introduced to it in the first episode. Is this door they can't open? It's locked, and they can't even open it with a crowbar
Or a skeleton key.
Yeah, it just is
and you
closed.
know that there's nothing but bad shit behind that door. To me, that's what I immediately was like, don't fucking open that door.
Yeah.
There is nothing good behind that door. Don't open it.
And then...
But the thing is, you can get into it. They've gotten into it this whole
the thing.
time.
We discovered in the 10th episode that their rooms, they're various, like, Luke has the treehouse, Steve has the game room, Theo has...
It's her dance studio.
Her dance studio. Shirley has, like, a book
living room. It's a living room,
Yeah. Olivia is like, I guess Olivia's the book.
Yeah,
room.
it's the reading room. Yeah.
And what is Hugh? Does Hugh have a?
I don't think we didn't see any room for him. I guess the house was like, fuck this guy. We don't want him. But yeah, this whole time we've seen the characters whenever they're alone. It's really whenever they're alone.
Yeah.
Whenever they're alone, they're in this place that belongs to them, it seems like.
However, Steve is in the treehouse with
That's true. Steve does get in the treehouse. And I thought I had rewatched that scene, and when the mom is looking for Luke, Steve's like, just check the treehouse. And she's like, huh, you're funny.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have picked it up the first time, but the reason she says that is because there's no fucking treehouse.
Yeah.
Anyway, and this is a point that this is the mention of the treehouse in Steve's novel, Adult Steve, is what gives Hugh the understanding that Steve actually did experience paranormal activity at the house and just didn't see it. And he tells him, because they're on their way to the house. So to wrap up where we are at the end of the show, basically, Luke disappears, right? He disappears after the funeral.
They think he's stolen a car and money and
that they think he's going to shoot up.
Yeah.
And he buys a shitload of gasoline and he's going to burn the fucking house down. Yeah. That's what he does.
He pours it all out.
Doesn't work. That house is
lights a match.
The house is like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
And
then he sees his mom, and then that's the last we see.
Right. So Luke goes back to the house first. Hugh knows where he's going, and because they figure out he has a gas card, and they track the gas card, and he's like, oh, he's going to the house. So they all head back there together. Well, in different cars. Shirley and Theo are in one car with Nell.
Yeah.
Only they don't know it, and I didn't know it.
That was the scariest fucking part of the entire show.
Okay. they're fighting.
They're fighting, mid-fighting.
Right. And Nell screams at them from the back seat.
Because I'm telling you. I'm trying to tell you.
I don't need to hear your excuses.
I'm not making excuses.
Bullshit.
Pops up in the
jumped
front
like
seat, yeah.
100 feet in the air in my chair. I threw it was like comical. It was almost
Yeah.
like a cartoon. I threw my blanket up in the air and I started like feeling, and I think I accidentally groped you maybe.
Yes. No, I tried not to laugh, but you were so upset, and I was like,
I was very upset. It was terrifying. So anyway, Theo and Shirley are in one car, and they're not speaking to each other because she thinks that Theo was trying to make out with her husband, which she wasn't. And then Dad and Steve are in the other car. Mm-hmm. And Hugh tells Steve, I read your book, and that treehouse didn't exist. Mm-hmm. And then he also talks about, oh my God, the fucking clockmaker. We didn't even talk about the clockmaker.
Witness marks.
Yeah. So Steve also writes in his book about when he was walking through the house and he sees this guy repairing the clock. And he's like, there was no guy repairing the clock.
Yeah.
And so this whole time Steve has been experiencing and seeing ghosts and paranormal things. And because his eyes have been closed, he didn't know.
Yeah.
He just accepted it as a reality.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they all end up back at the house, and they all end up in the red room through various ways. They get there,
they experience basically like a hallucination.
Yeah, like their worst nightmare, basically. Yeah.
But it doesn't start out as their worst nightmare. It's
Right.
like starts out as like their best dream.
Right. So Luke sees this girl that that he's in love with from rehab, who manipulated him to steal his money. And he sees himself kind of able to save her. Mm-hmm. And then it turns real bad and her eyes melt. And it's like, it goes bad.
Steve actually is the first one in the 10th episode who we think it's past. I knew it was a dream. I was like, this is a fucking dream.
And
he's back together with his wife, and she's pregnant, and he's working on his second book about what happened in the Red Room when Luke died, and
in that thing he says that Luke dies. Yeah, I don't remember what was Shirley's. Was it the man? No, because we find out that she cheated on her husband.
Yes,
and that's why
that was
she's having all that guilt. Yeah. What was Shirley's? Anyway, I'm sure somebody out there is screaming at us right now.
Yeah.
But anyway, they all end up in the Red Room.
Yeah.
And Luke has OD'd in the Red Room.
On rat poison.
No, it's not rat poison.
It's not?
No, he has heroin. Somehow he gets it. I don't know if he bought it on the way, but he's like ODing on heroin. It's not rat poison or he would be fucking dead.
That's true. That's true.
It's definitely heroin.
Okay.
And this episode is where we kind of get all the little pieces that we haven't gotten before. So we see the rest of the tea party.
Yes.
Actually, I think we see that in episode 9, right?
No.
We don't see the tea party. I thought we did. In episode 9, isn't that when we see Abigail drink the tea?
We see the actual event. Yeah.
Oh my God, you guys. Okay, so in the past, when Olivia leaves, she says she's going to her sister. She comes back and she decides, and this fucking rat poison, we have seen it over and over again in the show. They have done as many close-ups of it as possible. So you know that rat poison is coming back. She puts rat poison in the tea and invites Nell and Luke and poor little Abigail Dudley from next door upstairs to the Red Room for tea.
And it's open.
And it's fucking open for the first time. Mm-hmm. I was like, surely they're not going to make us watch these children drink tea and die. And I was fucking wrong. They sure did.
Watch one of them die.
Yes, Abigail.
But
and
still, it was
it's so goddamn heartbreaking. And they do not. It is a long shot of this child dying. It is awful. And when you know the history, and I did not realize until that episode when she sleeps over, that she was real.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, the way this show tells the story is really brilliant because you don't know who that kid is. You think she's a ghost, and then you realize, oh my fucking God, it's the Dudley's kid. It's the Dudley's kid they've been talking about, how they keep her locked away. Yep. She never sees any other kids. Here she fucking is. I was like, oh my God, it's the Dudley's kid. And to know that they had so much loss already.
Yeah.
It was just like, it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But that's when I think maybe we skip ahead to when Nell appears, right?
Yeah.
And Luke almost dies. Like, he almost gives up. Basically, we discover that the mom really wants all of them to stay with her in the house.
Die. And
so she wants them all to die.
Ghosts.
Yeah. And Luke and Nell tells him not to. And she's a child. She's a child again. She says, don't. You need to go back. You need to live. And then we see Nell coming into the Red Room, and she gives this really beautiful speech, which I'll probably cut in right about here.
I don't know how to do this without you.
I learned a secret. There's no without. I am not gone. I'm scattered into so many pieces, sprinkled on your life like new snow. Forgiveness is warm, like a tear on a cheek. Think of that and of me when you stand in the rain. I loved you completely. And you loved me the same. That's all. The rest is confetti.
But she gives this really beautiful speech about how when you lose someone, they're not really gone. They always stay a part of you. And we hear everyone again repeat the same thing they did when Nell first arrived at the house before she died, where they're all like, I'm sorry I spoke to you in anger. I'm sorry the last word, I didn't pick up the phone. And we hear it all again. Yeah. And what she says about forgiveness is so beautiful. And she also says that the Red Room of the house is kind of like the house's stomach. It's where the house manipulates you so that it can digest you slowly. Yeah. Heavy stuff.
Yes.
So Hugh's there. He's not in the Red Room.
No.
But he does run into Olivia. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. He runs into her and she's
upset because they all left her.
Yeah.
And he makes a deal with her.
Yeah, he makes a deal that he will kill himself and stay in the house with her if she lets their kids go.
And it's more than that. It's not just the deal. He convinces her that because she tells him about her fear of like letting them. She's like, look what you did. You let them go out into the world and they became broken. And he's like, we can't. And this is the thing that really spoke to me as a person struggling with, my kids are getting older. They're still pretty young, but as they get older and they start to be out in the world and other people have opinions of them and they have little heartbreaks and setbacks, you start to feel them drifting into this world that can be very scary and dark at times. And what he says to her is, it's not up to us to stop that stuff from happening. We can only love them and let them go out into the world. And they're gonna, whatever happens to them, that's their life. It's not up to us to dictate what happens to them and how they live. And that's what convinces her, that and him saying that I'll stay here with you. And that's what happens. I don't remember, does he take overdose on heart medication? Like he's got a heart problem, right? So he takes a bunch of those.
And he shows Steve basically the last night.
And we don't know that he's dead yet. I mean, we kind of get a sense that he might be, but basically Nell's in the room, the door opens and Dad is there, and he says goodbye to all of them, and they leave, and except for Steve. He's like, I need to show you something. And then we see everything that happened after Abigail dies. Well, after Abigail dies, how does Olivia end up jumping? She jumps. She jumps off of that spiral staircase and kills herself.
But this is her choice. Like, it was not like Nell. Nell was pushed.
But, she made the choice to. It was because she wanted to wake up. That's what it was. She calls it waking up. But Abigail dies, and Hugh basically saves the children. He takes them all away. By now, does he take the children before she jumps? I guess not, because he comes back and he sees her. She jumps
after they leave.
Yes. Okay. Now I remember.
So he feels like perhaps if he had taken her with them,
I don't think it's that. I think he knows that he had to leave. He could not have her around the children. I mean, she was dangerous. She killed someone's child already.
Yeah.
So he takes them somewhere safe, and he wants, imagine he's going to go back and reason with her, but she's dead. And we're watching this as Steve watches.
Yeah.
And the Dudleys come back, and they discover what's happened to their daughter. And they make an arrangement with Hugh. They're like, because anybody that dies lives on in the house as a ghost.
Yeah.
And they're like, please don't, because he's like, I'm going to burn this fucking house to the ground. And they're like, please don't. She's here and we want to be with her.
Yeah.
And as the one thing that he can do for them, he keeps the house
and
there.
Just lets it fall apart and doesn't let anyone else come near or stay there.
No, nobody's
or buy
allowed to be
it.
there except for the Dudleys who stay on the grounds so they can visit their daughter. And we also see Olivia after she dies get up and walk away, not knowing she's dead.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Do you that is the one question I have with the show is, do you think that if he had taken her with them and they had moved far away from the house, you think the house completely infected her and would have stayed with her the rest of her life?
I don't know about that, but I do think the only thing he could have done was take the children away. And he did what I think what he was planning to do was to take the children away and then come back and deal with Olivia separately. And I think that was the only thing he could do because she was dangerous to their children. She was dangerous at that point. And he would have had to have gotten her some help. And I don't know if that would have fixed it. We'll never know. But Nell continued to be haunted by the house long after she was gone.
That's true.
So at the end, we have all the children leave the house except for Nell, of course, because Nell can't leave. And Hugh stays there, and we kind of get this ending shot of them in the red room together. And then we go into the epilogue, which I think some people were upset about because they wanted the story to end there. But I was like, this is dark as shit, and I need I need a little hope. I need a little hope.
So basically, Steve and his wife get back together, and Luke is so sober for 2 years.
How does she get pregnant? Because didn't he get the snip? I mean, I don't know much about vasectomies.
They can reverse them.
So they can just go in there and like get some of the soldiers out and okay.
Yeah, they can completely reverse them, and then you're back to
okay.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know much about testicles, honestly.
That's all I know about.
I'm not
testicles.
a testicle
That's
expert.
the only thing I know about them.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. It's good that we came together here today to solve this problem because I was very confused as to how his wife got pregnant. I was like, I'm pretty sure that highway's been shut down.
Theo allows herself to be with that girl.
She moves out.
She gets rid of her
guest
gloves.
house. She gets rid of her gloves. Although, to be honest with her, I can't blame her. I don't think I'd want to have people's feelings on me all the time. I get why she has, but symbolically, yeah.
Pulling down her wall. Taking down her wall.
She's tearing down this wall, Mr. Gorbachev.
Deconstructing her wall.
What happens to Shirley? Is she just like happy in there?
She tells her husband
she tells him about
the guy.
The guy. Yeah.
And we don't really see how he reacts because we leave before much can be said.
But he is in the scene where everybody's got the cake and they're giving it to... a lot of people on the internet thought that this was a false ending and that they were all still in the red room.
Oh, God.
And the showrunner was like, he's dispelled this. He was like, so I don't want to tell people how to read the ending, but I do want you to know that it's not a false ending. We thought about putting that window in the red room in the back just to make you wonder, but we wanted to give them a real ending. And it's not fake. There's nothing there's nothing tricky about it. This is how their lives went on after the experience that they had.
I'm glad because that would have been
this show is heart-wrenching enough.
That'd be like the director's cut of The Descent. Did you see?
Yes, yeah.
Where they're still in the cave. Where
she's still in the cave and she thinks she's blowing out her daughter's birthday candles. Yeah. Another gut-wrenching movie about loss. Any final thoughts about.
I love this show.
Oh, so good.
I love
so
it so
fucking
much.
good.
I've been filled with so many chills tonight as we've been just discussing
too.
this. Just chills.
Oh my God.
And like fear and like I like yeah. I don't want to be alone right now.
Well, thank God you're not. So a couple things I wanted to say before we wrap it up is, one, and again, spoilers for American Horror Story Season 1, I felt like there were a lot of similarities between this and American Horror Story Season 1, including a house where when people die, they continue living on as ghosts. Oh, we didn't talk about the Dudleys, but the Dudleys they do show a scene of the Dudleys, Mrs. Dudley dying of old age. Mr. Dudley brings there, and then you see her young again, holding her baby that she lost, and with her daughter Abigail. Anyway, I'm going to start crying, fucking crying again, you guys. Anyway, so Murder House, season 1 of American Horror Story. The people that die in that house also remain in the house as ghosts. The ghosts do manipulate the people in the house. The family that moves into the house in Murder House is also manipulated. The mother and daughter are also killed and live on in the house as ghosts. And the father, all three of them, all die and live on the house as ghosts.
I haven't seen that show.
That show is also a lot about family relationships as well. And
so
the house manipulates you. Also, there's also a 1920s woman in the house who kind of manipulates things in the house as well. Only she's not evil really like this other person, although she lost a baby. And that's what her emotional arc is that she lost a baby, and that kind of drives all the action that she takes. But she's true. This flapper flapper.
Wow,
character.
That's so weird. That's a lot in common. Who wore it better?
Who wore it best? It's hard to say. I love Murder House. It's a great show. Or I'm sorry, I love American Horror Story. American Horror Story was a little campier and a little more gruesome. And I think that this story gripped me a little more emotionally. So I guess it depends on whether you like to wear leather or you like to wear satin. I don't know. Depends.
Speaking of satin, all of Olivia's house outfits were like
who dresses that beautifully every day?
She was wearing heels and like a nightgown.
She's like she was perfection in every scene. I think. Oh, one last question I wanted to ask you: do you think this show should have a season 2?
I've thought about it, and I think
because I believe they said they were thinking about it. Right.
The only way I would do that is if it goes back in time to the Hills and tells the Hills story.
You mean the house that the house is built?
The family named the Hills.
Yeah. But you know how I feel about period pieces.
Well, this was a period piece too. It was set in the 90s.
I love a period piece that takes place in the 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s. If you go any further back than that, I'm snoozing.
Oh, I love period pieces.
Yeah, I think they would have to tell another family story. Obviously, we could not stay with this family. This family story has wrapped up.
And maybe
I'm not sure if I want them to do another one.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't know that I do.
And this house too. The house, I
don't think it could get better. No, I do think there's a lot more. There's so many people in this house that have died that we could learn more about. But it's just like, I don't know if I could care as much as I do about these
season
people.
2 of Westworld. Like, it was still really good, but it didn't.
It was hard.
It wasn't
to love
the
it
same
as much,
excitement.
Although that episode about the Native American character was one of the best episodes of television I've ever seen. It was almost like that whole season was worth it just for that one episode. No, I agree that it would be difficult to top this. Mm-hmm. You'd be fighting against yourself. Yeah. Although obviously I would love for more people in Atlanta to be working on this show.
Yes.
So for that reason, I'd like them to come back. Mm-hmm. Any opportunity for people in Atlanta to be working on something cool. But from a story standpoint, it's a little difficult for me, despite how much I love the show, because of how much I love the show, to see how a second season could measure up.
Yeah. And I don't like the thought of things dragging on that kind of sully the rest of it. You know how like some shows went on like 3 or 4 seasons past, like Will and Grace. I couldn't finish the last few seasons of Will and Grace because I was like, it's just the same jokes over and over and over again. Like they were great for the first, few seasons, but after that, it's like, okay, like, so there are some shows like Cheers. I'm getting to that point in Cheers where it's like, okay, like how many
times
ways
can Sam and what's her face Kirstie Alley break up, right? Okay, so I feel like we've covered this pretty extensively. We've been talking for more than an hour, at least an hour and a half. This may be I may have to break this up into 2 episodes, possibly. So, but it's a big show. It's hard to talk about it in a short period of time. So, but I have enjoyed talking about it very much.
Take care of each other. Dad. And be kind to each other. If nothing else. Be kind. I was so lucky to be your dad.
Thanks for listening to the Georgia Made Podcast. The Georgia Made Podcast is now available on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, basically anywhere you listen to your favorite shows. So rate, review, subscribe, and tell a friend. This episode was recorded in studio in Atlanta, Georgia at Wondershop in Candler Park. So thank you, Wondershop. Wondershop is part of Community Arts Live Incorporated, so be sure to support us by supporting them. Listen to the Good Gracious Show podcast and check out their live show, The Good Gracious Variety Show, this Saturday, February 9th at 8 p.m. at the Neighborhood Church in Candler Park. For tickets and more information, visit communityartslive.org. This has been the Georgia Made Podcast with Sarah and Nicole. Thanks again for listening to the show, and come back in 2 weeks for our next episode when we'll be giving our Oscar predictions. Till then, you can continue the conversation with us on social media. We're at Georgia Made Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, and you can find us on Twitter at Georgia Made Pod.